Good morning, everyone. Hello, my name's Evans Gabriel, and today I'm going to be talking about how nervousness and anxiety impact people. Has this ever happened to you? The feeling of overwhelming stress, the thought that if you make one false move, that everything will crumble down, which in reality it won't. Or the constant self criticism that if everything's not perfect, then what's the point? Anxiety is what we call this. But what is anxiety? Why do we develop these feelings? Most importantly, how do they impact us? Questions I had always kept asking myself before any and every time I publicly spoke in front of large crowds of people. Whether it was during school, clubs, or outside events, I've always wondered why, until I finally decided to dive in deeper. Thanks to our lovely librarian Judy, she had helped supply me with a multitude of reliable sources for me to start my research journey on. To begin, I first had to figure out what exactly anxiety is. On Understanding Anxiety, a book published by Justin Haley, a doctor at the Asquith Medical Center, explains that anxiety is a normal response in a scary, dangerous, or unknown situation. Anxiety involves physical and psychological reactions that is necessary to prepare a body for either running away or fighting if necessary, known as fight or flight. But aside from making you anxious, how does anxiety interfere with your life? On the same book, Dr. Healy states anxiety becomes a problem when it is constant. That's when it interferes with our lives. For example, if someone were to always feel nervous or always feel like something is wrong, they won't have time to relax for themselves because they're always worrying about this, worrying about that. This will then make it so they can't continue with their regular day-to-day responsibilities. Dr. Healy also states that if anxiety is constant, it has a detrimental effect on a person's physical health. It is physically stressful for a body to feel anxious all the time. This would eventually lead me to anxiety disorders. According to the Cleveland Clinic, anxiety disorders are a type of mental health condition. Anxiety disorders go beyond the regular nervousness, anxiety, and slight fear you may feel from time to time. Anxiety disorders happen when anxiety interferes with your ability to function or you can't control your responses to situations. Some types of anxiety disorders are generalized anxiety disorder, GAD, or social anxiety disorder, SAD. Unbiased distance estimation and social anxiety disorder, a new avenue for understanding avoidance behavior. Social anxiety is the second most common anxiety disorder, with a lifetime prevalence of 12%. SAD is characterized by major fear in one or more situations, and whenever possible, individuals with SAD will choose to avoid their fear situation. Some symptoms of anxiety disorder generally include the following. For physical symptoms are cold or sweaty hands, dry mouth, nausea, muscle tension, or shortness of breath. For mental symptoms include feeling panic, fear, and uneasiness, nightmares, or uncontrollable obsessive thoughts. And for behavior symptoms include inability to be still and calm. If you think you have any anxiety disorders, you should maybe call your healthcare provider. This would ultimately lead me to a new question. What's the difference between anxiety and anxiety disorders? Once a question got answered, others popped up. Everyone at one point has dealt with anxiety, which I'm sure all of you guys are feeling right now presenting your videos. But anxiety isn't really truly shown but through the ones that are diagnosed with it. But what does this really mean? Luckily, I managed to interview a professor at Broward College with a doctorate in school psychology, who also happens to work at my high school, Dr. Babane, and here's what she had to say. Once again, Dr. Babane, thank you for allowing me to conduct this interview. Now, one of my biggest questions as I went on my research journey was, what is anxiety?
I like that question a lot. So, anxiety is really a stress response. It's a physical and psychological response, and it's a way for our minds and body to signal to us that we are in danger, okay? Years ago, and even still today, and it served an adaptive purpose. That means it helped us to survive. It's so, to feel anxiety and fear is not necessarily a bad thing. In the caveman days, right, when we were constantly exposed to, outside animals and outside dangers, right? We didn't have the same structures and boundaries then. Our anxiety, our stress response helped our physiological reaction. So we have something called the sympathetic nervous system. And the sympathetic nervous system is known for the fight or flight response. It's how our body's response helped our physiological reaction.
As you were saying, anxiety, everyone feels anxiety, but then it comes to a time where anxiety becomes something much more, as in an anxiety disorder. So my next question is, what is the biggest difference between anxiety and a anxiety disorder?
It's a really good question as well. And there is a big distinction. First, as I said, everyone experiences anxiety to some degree. Now, the biggest differentiation, well, we have a criteria that we follow, as in clinical practice. We use the Diagnostic Statistical Manual, the DSM-5, and that tells us what criteria an individual needs to meet in order to say that this is a disorder at this point, right? So some of the criteria, first, you have to be experiencing anxiety for 6 months or more. So an anxiety disorder is chronic. It's as if you were living in a chronic fight or flight state. That's very taxing on the nervous system. So some of these symptoms that a person might display and experience could be fatigue, sleeplessness, restlessness, excessive worrying, muscle tension. Okay, those are just some of the symptoms. And then another key factor that we look for is how that and if that anxiety is affecting an individual in their ability to function in any area of their life. Is it affecting their ability to function at school, at home, in their relationships, or at work? And so those are the main things and that differentiate someone from having just, typical everyday life-related, acute, what we say is more acute anxiety versus an anxiety disorder.
Of course. Thank you again, Dr. Babain, for allowing me to do this interview. It was a pleasure. You've supplied me with a surplus amount of information, and thank you again.
You're welcome.
Anxiety disorders have not only affected individuals alone, but has affected everyone as a society. According to Statista, one of the graphs that shows the percentage of the global population that suffers from selected mental health or substance use disorders as of 2019 shows that 3.94% of the global population suffers from anxiety disorders. Statista also shows a graph of college students with diagnosed mental disorders in the United States in 2021. By disorders, anxiety disorder came out on top with 31% of students suffering from it. Even though anxiety causes many problems for people, we actually develop it for a reason. But our perception of anxiety has always been negative, especially in the recent rise of anxiety disorders. We have essentially forgotten the reason why. Almost anytime we hear anxiety, we automatically assume it's something negative, which in many cases is true, but it actually holds many benefits that we have completely forgotten or just dismissed. Going back to the book Understanding Anxiety by Dr. Healy, I recalled that he stated that anxiety is part of our fight or flight response, which helps us to be on alert for potential dangerous or scary situations, such as crossing a busy road or approaching a black spider in a bathtub. I had also found another article, The Benefits of Anxiety and Nervousness by Catherine Starr. Dr. Starr explains that anxiety may be just the warning sign you need to bring awareness to your current situation and make some necessary changes into your life. Dr. Starr suggests that anxiety can be a form of motivation. Dr. Starr states that anxiety may actually help you feel more motivated and prepared when faced with challenges. Research has shown that the students and athletes who experience some anxiety actually display improved performances on tests or sports. The Anxiety American Academy of Pediatrics researching teens, a video by Sarah Kingsman, PhD, who is an adolescent medicine specialist at the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, supports this claim.
I always say in the old days, when we as humans or pre-humans needed to go from one cave to another cave, and we were roaming through the woods, somebody, hopefully, was not just thinking about where meat was going to come the next day. Somebody was watching out for problems. And so somebody in that group of people wasn't going to say, just a rock. Someone's going to say, uh-oh, that could be a lion. Or, uh-oh, let's be a little nervous because we're in a high snake region and that stick could actually be a snake. Somebody basically had to be on high alert. And when I think of anxiety, I think of it as being on high alert. And it is one of the most advantageous emotions that we have, because people who are anxious don't miss a beat. They know what's going on around them, and they know what's going on around them sometimes before it even is going on around them, because they're very sensitive, they're very aware, and they're very tuned in. And those are the wonderful benefits of anxiety. First of all, I always take on all the benefits of anxiety. The silver lining is it is incredibly helpful. It makes you productive, it makes you check things, it makes you worry, it gives you this incredible energy to do things that you wouldn't have to do if you were so laid back. And it has so many benefits.
Right after watching the video, something occurred to me. I deal with a lot of anxiety. The thing about it is that I deal with a lot of anxiety and I didn't even realize it. It was only until when I started this research journey on hearing from article to article, from video to video, from person to person, is when I looked at everything. I'm like, wait a minute, I see this within myself. It's funny because I never really realized it before. Just how the articles were saying previously and the video, anxiety can make you productive, motivated, and worried. Well, for as long as I can remember, that's literally how I live my life. Anytime something's assigned to me, or whether it be in school or work, I constantly have to do it. It's like, no, I have to do this, I have to do that, and it has to be perfect. Or when it comes to, I can't do one thing, I can't enjoy my time knowing that I have to do other assignments, or I have to do this, or I have to run an errand. Is that I can't really fully relax with myself without getting what I need to do done. Something I must say before I end my video is thank you, Professor Geerling. You pushed me to do this research video, and I actually learned a lot about myself and what I could do. In fact, this was actually my first research journey, my first real research video, and it showed me a lot. Even though it was stressful staying up all night, making sure everything was done correctly, I actually really enjoyed myself on this journey. From spending more money on coffee than I have ever, to getting forced to leave the library because it was closed. Once again, thank you, Professor, for pushing me. Thank you, and that'll be all.